Hello and welcome to Bridge to Faith. I'm your host, Yusuf Festus. For today, we're going to be talking about bridging the faiths. Up to now, you've probably got the idea that we're Muslims, and we've been talking a lot about how we can open the bridges to faith or open up ways for people to have a better understanding. And certainly it works two ways. We have, on the one hand, those who believe and those who don't believe in anything at all. And on the other hand, we have those who believe, but they have different ideas of what it is that they believe. And how do you resolve all of this, and how do you bring folks together? And what we feel and what we're committed to doing is that by presenting evidences, by presenting facts, proofs, and testable evidence, that the individual will be better prepared to make up their own mind and draw conclusions based on these evidences that they can verify themselves. This is why we developed a website that's called ScienceIslam.com. Now, I realize immediately some may be put off by the fact that you have the word science and Islam together, and others may be put off simply because you've said the word Islam, and others because you use the word science, and then trying to deal with the reconciliation in faith. But I assure you that you will not be disappointed if you will take the opportunity to go to the website. Whether or not you choose to agree or disagree with the scholars, scientists, and professors and doctors that we've assembled for this, at the same time, you may be pleased with the fact that someone has taken the opportunity to give these different views. Those who already believe there's a God but have never really been able to show testable evidence would appreciate this opportunity to see what's been said about scientific facts discovered and really perfected in the last couple of decades, yet these have been referred to in Holy Scriptures many, many centuries before any of these sciences were even developed. So that is a great opportunity, I believe, for the believers, if you will, quote unquote, the believers, to open up dialogue with non-believers and begin to share these ideas and then come to a way that we can reconcile some of the differences in the issues that we have. I've taken an idea here for you and let you think about it. In some religion, you may find somebody who has said that they believe that their God is a tree, and they worship their tree or the grass, or they worship something like this. Well, certainly a scientist is going to tell you the tree didn't create itself. It didn't come, about by any kind of special miracle or anything. It's a tree that came from a seed, and so therefore he wouldn't want to believe in that religion. And also the one who is going to tell you that they worship a man or worship a woman, believing that that's a god or a goddess or a demigod, then again a scientist will say, well, certainly that's somebody who was born and died, so therefore how in the world could you possibly want to worship that? Now, others may say that they believe that they are reincarnated, like they die and they come back and die and come back, kind of like being recycled. But this is something that, again, a scientist would totally reject. So I encourage you to go to this website. It's called ScienceIslam.com. And spend some time there and read the articles and watch the videos that are there. And then, if you like, send us some email right here to Bridge to Faith. Send it to info@bridgetofaith.com. That's info@bridgetofaith.com. And then we'll take your emails and maybe we'll be reading them right here on our program. We hope for the chance to communicate with you like this. And if we're not able to read all of them on the air, and that may be likely, what we would like to do at least is to give you some answers or link you up to some of the answers we have on the internet. And while I'm on the subject, and I love to promote our websites, I want to tell you about another website. It's called IslamNewsroom.com. That's IslamNewsroom.com. And then for replays of this broadcast and others like it, visit our website. It's called bridgetofaith.tv. That's bridgetofaith.tv. And if you get confused, just go back to bridgetofaith.com. You'll find the link to our TV channels over there. Now, having said all that, what I want to do now is let you see a little segment of one of our programs that will help you, I think, get a better understanding about what it is we Muslims believe about the proof of God. And that's coming up right now. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this segment of Bridge to Faith. We'll be back right after the segment.
Somebody who did not know something about nuclear physics 1400 years ago could not, I think, be in a position to find out from his own mind, for instance, that the earth and the heavens had the same origin, or many other of the questions that we have discussed here. If you combine all these, and you combine all these statements that are being made in the Quran, in terms that relate to the earth and the formation of the earth and science in general, you can basically say that the statements made there in many ways are true. They can now be confirmed by scientific methods, and in a way you can say that the Quran is a simple science textbook for the simple man, and that many of the statements made in there at that time could not be proven, but that modern scientific methods are now in a position to prove what Muhammad said 1400 years ago.
It follows, I think, that not only is there no conflict between genetics and religion, but in fact religion may guide science by adding revelation to some of the traditional scientific approaches. That there exist statements in the Quran shown centuries later to be valid would support knowledge in the Quran having been derived from God. Thank you very much.
It has been a great pleasure for me to help clarify statements in the Quran about human development. It is clear to me that these statements must have come to Muhammad from God or Allah, because almost all of this knowledge was not discovered until many centuries later. This proves to me that Muhammad must have been a messenger of God or Allah.
Muhammad was a very ordinary man. He couldn't have read, he didn't know to write. In fact, he was illiterate. And we're talking about 1200 years ago. You have someone, an illiterate person, making profound pronouncements and statements that are amazingly accurate of a scientific nature. And I personally can't see how this could be a mere chance. There are too many accuracies. And like Dr. Moore, I have no difficulty in my mind reconciling that this is a divine inspiration or revelation which led him to these statements.
By finding true astronomical facts in Quran. And for us, we modern astronomers have been studying very small fields of the universe. We concentrated our efforts for understanding of very small parts, because by using telescope, we can see only a very few parts of the sky without thinking whole the universe. So by reading Quran and by answering to your questions, I think I can find my future way for investigation of the universe.
Well, let's go to the next step now. And that is a few more letters. We've been talking about the letters and the connection of the letters. So let's introduce some more of the letters. I want to go to the forest now and talk about the trees in the forest. We've been out to the beach. We've talked about the pot-bellied family, and now we want to go to the forest and look at some trees and some of the things that we find out there. Well, that's a tree, or that's a stem, or that's something really big. It's not a little short thing, it's a big one, and that's called a leaf. Now, I know that a leaf looks kind of like that, but this is a leaf, and it doesn't have any leaves on it. Maybe just a little small one off to the side. So we're going to give it a little small leaf off to the side like that. There's its little leaf right there. A leaf. See it? the little leaf. So this is where we get the A sound, but we can get a oo sound from it. We can get an E sound from it. We're going to go on now, and I'm going to give you a couple more of these trees out in the forest. This one right here, look at what it's got down at the bottom of the tree. You see that? Now, how do you like that? It's kind of a tall tree. Let's say that. Say, tall, not ta. We already had ta. You remember ta had 2 dots. This is tall. Tall, tall, not tall. Don't say the L on it, but say tall. Let me hear you say it. You didn't say it very loud. I said it louder than you did. Let's say tall. There you go. All right. That's tall. Now we're going to, you know what we did a while ago? We had some that were similar to the others, right? When we did the potbelly family, we're going to do it again. We're going to come up with that again. Look at there. Only we're going to put a dot right there. That was ah, and that's ta. And what is that going to be? That's the. Now this the is a real heavy TH sound. The other one we had was 3 dots. You remember the 3 dots? That was the, lightweight, like with and 3. But this one is like this, that, these, and those. This is that, and that is this. So give it a heavy TH sound right there. And a nice da sound over here, and a ah sound over here. This is ah. Could be ooh, it could be E, and it could be silent. We're going to come into that a little later. But right now that's alif, ba, and va. I don't want to put a dot here, it'll confuse you. Ba and va, the. Let me hear that. The, heavy duty. Huh? That's pretty good. All right. Now let's get another one going here. Now there's another big one out here, and just go like this. Now he doesn't have the little circle over to the side. He's got just that one hook over here. See that? That, it looks a lot like what? If we did it this way, what would it be in English? That'd be an L, wouldn't it? Well, guess what? In Arabic, that's a lam. The sound of L in Arabic comes from this letter, which is the exact opposite of the English letter L, and this is called lam. Lam. We mentioned it a little while ago in another segment when we made the connection between the Ain, the Lam, and the Fat Ya. We found out that the Ya actually came in two families. He was in the stem family, you know, on the stems or the waves coming out of the ocean. But now we found out he's also a pot-bellied guy, and this was Ah, La, Ya. Ah, la, ya. And I'm going to tell you about these things a little bit later on too. But that was just to show you how what happens when these letters, which used to have the big pot bellies, what happens whenever they're going to be in like this. Now this will be ah, lay, he. For instance, alehi. We're going to talk about it later. Don't worry about it. I'm just showing you what happens when they're in a word and they connect to each other. So now we got a, ta, tha, and lam. Guess what? We got another one. And it's not exactly like this one. This is a rounded hook coming down. This is more squared off at the bottom, and it gets something like this. Gets a little like that, like Superman. You put a little S in there. And guess what it is? This is a K sound, like the letter K in English. Say K. Now say calf. Let me hear you. Calf. Calf. Not like the calf of your leg. This is just K-A-F. Calf. Calf. Got it? All right, so write these down. Take a minute or two. Then we'll give you some time at the end of this segment. You can go back over all of this. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put some more up here and talk about the next series. Well, we're back. Hope you enjoyed that little clip. It certainly gave us something to think about when we talk about science and religion. And now, well, you were watching the clip, my good friend and main host of our show here with us is Imam Muhtar Sabri. He's back with us now, and I share with you that we would just talk to them about the idea of proof or science and how it relates to religion, and how Muslims talk about proving there's God through scientific evidences. One of the things that you and I have talked about many times, we have a special on that, the program we did, remember, about the unique Quran.
Yes.
I think we made up some DVDs and you took some different places.
We did that and posted it on YouTube Islam, as a matter of fact.
Yeah?
Yes. It was one of our first productions.
Ha ha ha. There's another chance to promote another website. YouTube Islam. YouTubeislam.com. And like all of our websites, we have another one called Islam Always.
That's right.
And remember what we used to say about it? It's always open 24 hours a day and always plenty of free parking. But YouTube Islam has a lot of great programs over there, and you can join and upload your own programs. And we're trying to encourage folks to do that as well. Have you joined yet?
Yes, I have.
Have you uploaded any programs?
I have not uploaded any
programs.
programs.
You got to upload some of your programs.
Inshallah.
Take a picture of some of those kids and put them up there.
We'll do that.
Have any of your children started memorizing the Quran?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
How are they doing with it?
They're doing very well.
Have you thought about videotaping the kiddos?
I've thought about it, but we haven't really gotten to that point yet where they're comfortable.
They got to get comfortable with that.
Yes.
Who has memorized the most Quran?
Layla, my 17-year-old, of course. She's memorized the most. But the little ones, Faiza, she's 6, and she's memorizing quite a bit. They all get in because they're enrolled in the Muslim school in Columbia. The 6th through 8th grade are working on Juz Amma.
Well, how high up does the school go there in Columbia?
Only to the 8th grade.
8th grade?
Yes.
8th grade. That's be how old? 14?
Yeah, 14.
13, 14, 15-year-olds, like
yes.
that?
That's correct.
Are they planning on going up into the high school at 9, 10, 11?
We're hoping that the school will, but our resources are very limited. The staffing is very limited. So we're looking at various options, homeschooling, perhaps even you're looking at relocating to other areas where there are higher level grade schools.
I think a lot of us are in that condition today. A lot of us find ourselves in that boat, wondering, where we should go, how we should deal with our children, if we should put them in public school or other parochial schools. I know some of our brothers have put their children in Catholic schools or Lutheran schools. And in my own case, when my kids were young, I was a Protestant Christian, but I still put, even though we were in the Church of Christ, or Disciples of Christ actually, we put our children in the Lutheran school because they had the best school. So it's important, to consider that the education is an important thing, but at the same time, keeping their faith is also very important. And in secular schools, often you don't have that.
That's very true.
We've been talking about science. We've been talking about religion, and I think it's appropriate that we mention education as well, because a lot of times the curriculum that's being presented is very biased toward trying to promote this idea of Darwinism and evolution of species to other species. Well, actually, we have some real good stuff about that. I was thinking, too, about the Harun Yahya work that's been done. Are you familiar with Harun Yahya?
Yes. He's a very, very popular writer and has had a prolific impact on the Muslim world, in particular with his literature.
Well, actually, when I was in Turkey, I had a chance to go there. I actually went to Turkey.
Turkey?
I was in Turkey. And we went to Istanbul, and we went to Ankara. We went to the place where by the way, the books that are written are not everything by Harun Yahya. He has a group, an actual small army of PhDs who are writing these great works and putting all this stuff together, and then he checks it over. He's a highly intelligent person. This man is just very astute in his background and his efforts and his sacrifices to get this stuff out there, and it's always high quality. And we have some of it on our YouTube Islam, or a person can go straight to their websites at harunyahya.com as well. There are some things that I don't agree with, but then at the same time, I have to tell you that probably we won't find anybody you're going to totally agree with about every single thing. But the mainstream things that he talks about when it comes to science and God, I think is relevant for all faiths to look at what he has and consider it, because I think there's a lot there. I would enjoy it.
I have a question. For a young growing Muslim family today with school-age children, what should they look for in a good Muslim school?
I'm going to tell you what happened to me one time. It's kind of related. One of our brothers came over from a Muslim country, well, an Arab country, let's call it an Arab country. And he was so happy the day he met me. He said, "Oh, I'm meeting you today. It's nice to meet you." He said, "Ben, a very exciting thing is happening in our family today." I said, "What is that?" He said, "I put my son in American public school." And I said, "Why don't you put him in the toilet?" He said, "What?" I said, "Why don't you put him in the toilet?" He said, "No, you don't understand. I put my son in American public school." I said, "I understand. I'll tell you in Arabic, hammam. Why don't you put him in the toilet?" He said, "Why?" I said, "At least then you could wash it off. Because things that you put your children in some of these public schools is really bad." He didn't like that. And so he didn't want to talk to me for a while. But we became friends later. And years passed, and we didn't see each other anymore. He moved, and I moved. And then by chance, we ran into each other one time. And he said, "I need to talk to you." Well, we set up an appointment. I went to talk to him. I had a friend with me, and I told my friend the same story I just told you. So we sat down with him, and while we were sitting there, he said, "Do you remember what you said to me the first day we met?" I said, "I remember real well. Do you?" He said, "Oh, yeah." And then he recounted the story just as I had told the person. And he said that I said, "You should have put your child in the toilet because at least you can wash it off." He said, "Well, I want to tell you, you were wrong." And I was kind of surprised. And I said, "Well, I've been wrong before, so, I'm sorry." He said, "No." He said, "You should have told me that it was 10 times worse to put him in the school than the toilet because you could wash it off, because my son has turned out to be this, this, and this," and he was going on, and he was crying and upset. But, alhamdulillah, we were able to, over a period of time, contact the son. The son had gone off, and some things had happened. But the family was able to patch things up together. But one of the biggest problems he had was he was trying to set the mentality of his Arab culture back home on a boy that was actually growing up over here in public school. And it just doesn't work, because the child is going to be one way at the school, and then he's going to be another way at home. And then he's got like this transition movement on the bus or wherever when he kind of switches out his thinking or his clothes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to put your children in the public school, you need to be prepared, and you really should go and sit with them. You should go in there if the teachers would let you. I don't know if they allow that anymore, but we used to do that years ago, back in the 60s, 70s. We used to go sit with the kids in the school. And when my wife worked in the library, be a volunteer, and watch what they do and how they behave, what the other children are saying, so you get a feel of what's going on. Your child comes home, he's influenced very heavily by what he sees during the day. So he comes home and says things, does things according to what he saw all day long. So when you put them in that environment, and then they come home, and now you've got this problem. Whoa, where did you get those? How did you? Oh. And the child's looking at you. It's like, everybody there said it, So then the child goes back and tells them, "Well, my parents didn't like it. Oh, your parents are old-fashioned and blah, blah, blah." And, it just... So I think you're right in especially in the beginning years, to have the children in the Muslim schools. And the same I would recommend for all people of faith, that if your children are in a secular environment, you've got to expect that they're going to come back with that kind of mentality. And if you want them to have the faith that you have, they need to grow up in it. You see, our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that every child is already born in a state of perfect faith. But then it's the parents that will raise them up to become some other faith. So or no faith. They could be fire worshipers. They could be nothing worshipers, And it's going to be based in part and a large part of it, by the way they're raised up, by the parents and the environment that they're in. And this is true psychologically, and you'll see that happen.
Given the limited resources that are available to many Muslim families today, is an independent Islamic school environment a viable option or alternative for those families where the tuitions may be very high, the staffing may be limited, resources and facilities are oftentimes measured against the public school facilities and resources that are by far superior in material ways? Is this a realistic alternative?
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you something. This question is a big question. The answer, we don't have room for it in this program or two programs, but what I will do is tell you this. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy no matter how you look at it. But then that's part of raising your children. It's not an easy thing, but it's a rewarding thing. Now, if you or your wife will take the time to educate them at home, that's what my wife did. And we totally educated the last two daughters that I had, never attended public school. They got their total education from first grade all the way through high school. They even ordered their own high school rings. My daughter just ordered her high school ring the other day. And she's been out of high school for a while, but she's just now getting to ordering a ring. And this is a great thing for them to have a chance to learn at home. They do miss some of the things, but if you put them in the weekend school at the masjid or something, they'll catch they'll get more than, just out of the weekend school as far as their relationship with the kids. But by keeping them in the environment of the homeschool, you don't lose this beauty that they have, this innocence they have in the way that they treat you as a parent. It stays with a lot of respect because you are the parent and the teacher, which is the way it used to be, time immemorial, up until just the last few hundred years, really. People were all taught by their parents. But now, and especially in the last couple of decades, it's been like the parents all have two jobs, they're not home, the kids hardly know their parents. So it's a whole different world now. So if you would like to go back to that kind of world, it requires that. It's a sacrifice, it's hard work, but it's worth it because your children get a better education. My children tested out very high, and they understand the material. The curriculum is clear to them, and they understand about the respect still for the parents and for themselves. So that's really good, and they don't get in trouble, or they get in trouble with. They're right there with you. But that may be too hard for some people.
You've been watching another edition of Bridge to Faith. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having you again next week. Until then, peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.